What it is, y'all, it is your old boy Pilk, and I'm coming back today with more Danmachi. Now, you guys have asked me repeatedly for a video on Wargames team building, and I've been very vocal. Like, I am not the best Wargames team builder. You guys never see me in hero rank. I'm lucky if I'm able to climb Jester rank. Like, I simply am not that person. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give you some hints and tips, and maybe you could surmise some of the information you need to build a stellar wargame team. Now, while I'm only at Braver rank right now, a lot of that's just simply because, honestly, I just take wargame pretty easy. I just climb the ranks, see if I get to like Jester rank. Usually by like the final day, I'm doing my final Jester climb and things like that, and just things happen when it happens. Just because my weekend is extremely busy, so. When it comes to Wargames team building, the first thing that I can recommend to you guys, number one, first and foremost, when you get to King rank, you have to have a very fast team. And I mean a very fast team. Basically, the number one key to winning, this is actually not just true in Wargame, this is also true in Undertale Skira. If I'm going into Undertale Skira, which I would argue is probably even more a case of team building, like nightmarishness, let's look at this team for one, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at their Lily. Their Lily has agility of 2048, okay? My Lily, on the other hand, has agility of 2035. So they will defeat me, no questions asked. This team will dominate. Their Belle and their Aisha, it's pretty much going to come down to who's got more CP levels and who's got the better assist. There's some question here as to who's going to do what here. But the end all be all, you have to understand how some of these units work. Come turn 2, and a lot of us are going to be running units that actually have, case in point, I believe we can kind of showcase this here, this Aphrodite. So, Aphrodite does attack all target 20%, agility guard rate, and counter rate down 15%. So we're going to be debuffing agility. Now, I see that unit also on their team. Okay? Also on their team, I see we're using a lot of similar units. Case in point, this Seer. The Seer does physical resist and magic resist with nullified ailments. So we're both debuffing pretty heavily. Now, what's basically going to wind up happening here with some of these skills and some of the activity going on in here? Basically, we're going to have a bunch of nullified attacks. So turn 1 isn't going to be hugely impactful. But if I do fight this, that does mean it's a lot of it's going to go into turn 2. We might do a little bit turn 1, and then maybe it'll come to who heals better at the end of turn 1. Turn 2, I'm going to assume we're both going to go into it pretty much on about the same footing. Not a lot of damage here and there. But whoever's unit comes out on top, and it's going to be their Lily's going to win the race. That Lily is then going to come in with a major debuff. All my attack buffs basically are gone at that point. That cripples my team and nullifies my ability to produce damage on the next turn. These are some of the hints and tips, and that's why you see the new Lily run so terribly often on these teams. So really, this is not a team that I'm going to face. I'm going to go ahead and update, skip out of this, and go to a different team. Now, if I go back to Wargame here, the nice part about Wargame is if you go to unit popularity, it gives you a great idea of some of the units that are really popular. Notice Lily is right here. She's a really popular unit. Aisha and Belle, both still really popular. And Artie being a unit that's a year old, still insanely popular, just because she's got some great debuffs, she got some counter healing, she's got a lot of really stellar uses. Artie is a great unit on this team, but you notice who's number 1. And this is why when she dropped, I told you guys, as much as it sucks, as much as you don't want to spend your free-to-play Iris right now, you might want to consider it. Aphrodite. Aphrodite is a stellar wargame unit, and unfortunately, I do not have mine maxed. Not for lack of trying, I simply just don't have mine maxed out. I will rectify that very soon, but the reason she's so good, okay, if we go down here to her skills, First things first, she's a very fast unit. Let's go back over here and look at her stats one more time. So remember I was talking about speed. Speed all comes down to this agility stat. Now, her agility stat isn't so great here, but remember, this is a +3. Her agility stat maxed out is going to be very, very, very high. Not only that, her HP gets really high and her defense gets really high. Basically, this unit tanks like crazy. Like absolute crazy. Okay? Now, then, when she comes out of the gate with her skill 1, that's a fast attack, which means that gets its own buff there. Remember, fast attacks happen before generic attacks. So, if we have 2 units going at it, case in point with the Lily we were talking about, and they both have fast skills, whoever has the highest agility number is going to win the race. Now, it does mean debuffs and things like that will have a major, major, major impact on your opponent. If you're able to debuff their agility, but they do not debuff yours, you might win that race. So a lot of math actually goes into this equation. But let's say, for the sake of argument, say my Aphrodite's on the front line, she's +3. I see another Aphrodite, she's +5. That means I'm not winning the race. I will not beat that team. But the nice thing about Aphrodite, and the main reason people use her so much, great defense, great HP, really fast unit, she's going to tank, and she's a speedster. This unit, all around, excellent wargame unit. Excellent wargame unit. Now, there are exceptions to this. Obviously, you always want to use a unit that says foes plural. I've seen people throw foes singular units on the team. There's a tactic to that, but it rarely, if ever, works. You always want to use foes plural. That's an AoE unit, area of effect unit. Attacks everybody on the team or pretty darn close. So, let's just take a look one more time what she does. Fast, damage received, attack all targets plus 35%. So that means everything after this attack is going to be increased 35%. That's wild. That's insane. So that means everybody else that's attacking after Aphrodite is going to hit that much harder. So if your Aphrodite loses the race and all their other units are able to beat any of your other units out of the gate, you run a very, very, very strong risk of just disintegrating on turn 1. That's the bad news. Now, there are units in the game that will nullify physical attacks, magic attacks, and sometimes both. So, what you can often do is you can build a team that will maybe nullify enough physical attack, nullify enough magic attack, will be able to basically tank those effects. Now, these skills still affect your units, you just don't take the damage. So even if you nullify her magic attack, you're still going to take 35% extra damage from all AoE attacks when you finally do take damage. Just because you nullify your attack does not mean these effects do not go into play. You just simply don't take the damage. Understand that very well, because if you go into this thinking that, yes, I've nullified their attack and I don't have anything to worry about, you're going to get clobbered, and it's going to be absolutely no fun. Okay? The other thing she does, she buffs her strength, dex, physical resistance, and magic resistance plus 60%. So she already had great defense, had great HP. Now, she's trying to be the last person standing. When that says self, that means her magic, her dex, her physical resist, her magic resist. Some people might throw on her team thinking she's going to buff all your allies' stats. When it says self, that is only her. She's the only one that gets these buffs. Okay? And +4 actions, low water magic attack, damage 150% when your opponent is inflicted with charm. This makes her insane, absolutely nuts, because if we go down here to turn 2, high water magic attack, another fast skill though, I want to emphasize that, fast high water magic attack with ultra uncounter rate, 35% charm. So basically she's going to attack you with this. If she hits you, great, awesome. That means all your allies are getting a status debuff removal. Basically any debuff that's applied to your allies loses 2 turns. So if they're applied with a 4-turn debuff, that basically means at the end of this turn, it's pretty much gone. Might even go into the next turn. Who knows? But it really takes that down quite a bit. Then to have 35% chance to charm. If Aphrodite charms one opponent, just one person on the other team, go back up here. Remember, this always takes place on the following turn. So turn 1, she's going to do this. Turn 2, that attack is going to take place. That is a low water magic attack. That is going to hit for 150% to whoever she charms. And since it is 35%, statistically speaking, one person on your team is going to receive that charm. Count that person out. That person is dead. Absolutely deceased. So, basically, she's just going to spam skill 2 until your whole team is done. And with her 60% physical and magic resistance, and her high HP, and her high defense, her entire goal is to be the last person standing. If you did not pull for this unit, and you want to be a mainstay in Wargame, you made a major mistake. This unit is massive. I talked about her when she was here. I've talked about her a lot. She's phenomenal. So, main thing is when you're building a team, I would say go into unit popularity, start assessing what each one of these units do. Because all of these units, even that Leafy down there, I was kind of on her. She's good, but all 5 of these units up here will murder your team. All 5 of these units are spectacular. Even Yukina. The big thing about her is basically her counter is, such a massive debuff that your units have like next to nowhere to go. The other thing to consider here is healing. Healing is insanely important. Now, you'll notice Artie up here and Haruhime down there. Artie is still favored because of her debuffs and things like that. She is still the favored unit for a lot of these teams. I actually am not running her hilariously. Well, I take it back. I'm running her as a sack. Honestly, I would probably see better results if I took Haruhime out of the front and put Artie right here. Just because this is more of like a long haul team. This team's going out to turn 4 and turn 5. And rarely in Wargame, Familia Wargame, yes, but rarely in Mainstay Wargame are you going to see that. So really, Artie, for what she's worth, probably would be better in slot 4. I just haven't modified my team to do that. And of course, 100%, if I had Aphrodite maxed, she would really, really deserve a place on the front line. In fact, I may even replace, put Belle off, have Aisha, Lily, and her in the front, and just let her annihilate our opponents. Okay, now that's all adventures. The other thing to consider are assists. We haven't talked much about assists, but assists probably make the biggest overall difference in your Wargame team. Let's go back to unit popularity and let's look at assists. Okay, notice that Seer unit is insanely popular, and I mean insanely popular. So is that Artemis. Both these units we've talked about, both these units are really, really good. Backstage Princess Ice is a great unit. I absolutely love her. Let's go talk about her because she stays on my team almost constantly. Backstage Eyes. When she comes out of the gate, strength, magic, physical resist, and magic resist plus 10%. So all of your allies are getting all of those stats. Then foes plural, status buff minus 3 turns. That means when she hits the field, if your units have a status buff in play, and if it's got less than 4 turns, it's gone. Everything, as soon as she hits the field, is done. She can be absolutely deadly. The thing is, with a unit like this, you do not want to use units of this nature on the front line. You want to use these units of these natures on units that are designed to come in after somebody else croaks. Case in point, I've got her on the backside, and I actually have a really good reason for that, but I'm not going to go into that in this video. Knowing how these units work is critical in understanding how your Wargame team is going to affect your opponents. Now, the other thing to consider, remember I said winning the race is absolutely critical. And I talked about how important Lily is to teams, and obviously Aphrodite, if she was maxed out, would be even more important. Lily is that unit turn 2 that basically nullifies everything. So if you are going up against a team that doesn't have Lily and you have Lily, basically, if you could survive to turn 2, you could almost, not always, but generally speaking, consider that a wash. They're done. Okay? Their game is over. To be fair, there's a lot of other units that do a lot of other things. I'm overgeneralizing. But what I'm saying is, knowing what your opponent does versus knowing what you're capable of doing is going to make all the difference in the world. But I need that Lily to win the race. So, how do I get more agility on here? Well, if I go in here to party description, I'm probably going to wrap myself out. I probably have higher agility on someone else. And I go down here to agility. This is going to tell me which unit has the highest agility. And actually, this is why she was favored. Full Moon Elpis actually has the highest agility right now. And notice she does null physical attack times 2, except special arts. They will never nullify special arts. But 2 attacks will be completely nullified right out of the gate. So that means 2 physical attacks. So while it won't guard against the attack that Aphrodite does, let's say Belle's attack. She's going to take Belle's attack. While you will be affected, you just simply won't take damage. It's really, really, really important to understand that clarification. Then, self plus 3, instant effect when physically attacked, 75% null physical attack times 1. So base that means when she takes an attack, she has a 75% chance to nullify the next attack. That is super, super important. Now, I should have her on my team. I'll be honest with you. I simply haven't changed my team in long enough, but you'll notice she actually is on Aisha, and the main reason for that is because I need Aisha to hit turn 1. So basically, let's just do a quick war game run. Once again, I haven't modified my team for this war game. This is the same team I've been running for the last 2 war game, but notice how quickly my team comes out of the gate. Now, Lily I know hit first, but that's because Lily has the highest agility. Turn 2 is where Lily really shines. And actually, Aisha beat her. Lily should be going faster. So that means I actually have to modify something. But that's okay. We're good. We won this one. I actually probably should put Elpis on Lily, but I've got, once again, I need to reassess my teams. I've got to do a little bit of work on these teams still. This team is far from perfect. And like I said, I could talk the talk. I can't always walk the walk. So when I'm telling you guys what to do, that doesn't always mean that I follow suit with that or that necessarily is the best course of action. But I've had so many requests for this video, I can't ignore that. I got to get something out for you guys to talk about. Now, hopefully that gives you guys some clues. I know everybody's asked me for like 1 or 2 teams that are absolutely stellar, that are guaranteed to get you to King 1. Honestly, just build a team out of the unit popularity. If you, any combination of these units should be able to handle that. Now, the other half of this is you don't really want to mix elements too much. You can a little bit here and there, but largely if you're hitting with like, if your main hitter is a wind unit, you want to make sure you have some, other wind units on the team. And wind has been heavily buffed right now. If you remember last year about this time, like light magic was just dominating. You had a really crazy opportunity to build a crazy good light magic team. That turn 1 was just clearing the field. Thankfully, that's been nullified a little bit, but it is still an absolutely insane team that will most assuredly get you to King 1 without question. So, really, there are so many different ways to build a team. I could give you a handful of them, but I find it's easier to explain how these teams work. Maybe go in, learn a few of these really, really stellar units. I will tell you, anybody that came with the most recent banners, anybody that came on the anniversary, as I always say, the anniversary is a massive turning point in this game. Pay attention to what they do. Any AoE unit that you think has a crazy good effect, test them out. Find somebody to follow. Just find somebody in your familia to follow, and then work through teams. Use take an afternoon, to a couple of hours even, and just sit down and then try to fight some of your friend units and see what you can do, because you might be surprised what kind of teams you have without realizing it. Now, I will also emphasize, you do not need, let me see if I can pull one up here. You do not need a unit of all max limit breaks to really produce insane numbers. I have fought teams in here in Undertale Skira that, case in point, you see this, that Leafia at +1 and that Chloe at +1, those are units that they're sacking deliberately. Do not fall for that trick. Basically, if you, and notice their Lily also is going to have much higher agility than mine. Their Lily has Elpis on her. My Lily without Elpis is going to lose turn 2 to her. Now, so I probably could beat this one, only because My team's going to come out of the gate with some crazy good hits. But actually, I take that back with their... yeah. No, I'm looking at this team build, and there's no way I would win this one. Only because their Artemis is going to take me down 100%. That's the other thing to consider here. Artemis is a crazy good unit, and you cannot always look at a unit and say, okay, that unit's +2, +3. Yeah, I'll take that down. Sometimes it's there deliberately for that purpose. Now, the other half of this that I haven't talked about yet, and it's a very complicated conversation to have because there are different schools of thought on this, and there are important factors. These settings, I could do a whole video alone on these settings, and I probably will. That said, in fact, I'll probably do that tomorrow. I'll do a whole video just on these settings tomorrow because that probably would be the most important. But typically, not always, but typically when you do balanced, it's always going to do attack 1, attack 2. And it's going to repeat that. If you do attack all, obviously it's going to favor your AoE attack. If your attack 1 is an AoE attack, oftentimes it'll do attack 1 and then attack 2. Pretty straightforward stuff. Attack 1 you're almost never going to use, but there are situations where it is a thing. Buff. Buff changes everything. So let's say I have Artie set to buff here. Okay? On turn 1, fast avoids KO when HP is greater than equal to 10%, and physical resist and magic resist plus 35 or plus 30% with 35% HP regen. If she is set to buff, she's going to do this over and over and over and over again. If she's set to heal, she's going to do skill 2 over and over and over and over and over again. If she's set to debuff, she can do skill 2 over and over and over again. Why? Skill 2 is a 30% heal and a 30% physical and magic resistance debuff. So settings are insanely important. Notice I have mine set to buff because I want her to do skill 1 over and over and over and over and over again. I could set her to balanced and she would do interesting things, but I just find for me buff works a little bit better. Heal would be interesting, but because she has a counter heal, it's actually not terribly important. So hopefully that makes more sense. Now, ailment is its own thing. I haven't talked about ailment teams much, but remember, ailments are your stuns, your sleeps. What else is there? Actually, Aphrodite. First unit that we've had that can actually use charm in Wargame. Very interesting unit. And, I mean, I could set her to ailment, and then that's all she would try to do. Now, to be fair, that would nerf my damage because she really needs that secondary attack in order to get that off. But I could do a whole video just on these settings and how these settings affect different units. The best thing I can recommend is use the sandbox. Test units out. Make sure the unit is doing the attack order that you want. Because I have had repeated conversations with people where they said, no, I have it set this way. They're doing it this way. And I'm like, well, I have it set to, let's say for the sake of it, they have it set to buff. It's doing exactly what they want. I'm set, well, I have mine set to balance. It's doing the same attacks. That can definitely be the case, but you need to test your unit and make sure that they're doing the right attacks on the right turns. I really can't go into a huge amount more. Like I said, these could make a whole video in and of themselves because the settings here are so much different. In fact, we might do that tomorrow, but Wargame is a really wild thing and is constantly in flux. Just because your Wargame team won this Wargame, they could get stomped on the next one. So you need to constantly be paying attention, constantly reassessing your team. Now, to be fair, King 1's fairly easy. Once you get a full maximum broken team of popular units that are, like I said, in this unit popularity poll, you're probably going to get to King 1. That should be a no-brainer. If they're all maximum broken, if you've got good assists on them, and if you've built the team with some kind of team synergy, i.e., it's a win team with some good win assists, or, it's a fast team with a lot of agility assists, or something of that nature. They have to have something that makes them cohesive. But if you got, a dark unit with a light unit, with a wind unit, and, a random ailment unit set up there for no better reason, you're probably not going to go very far. You've really got to think about a theme, and you got to stick to that. And mine has always been speed. To be fair, as you've seen here, and I did poke holes in my own team while I was sitting here doing this, things I didn't think were problems, and actually turned out to be problems. I've got some work to do. But to be fair, as I said, teams are always in flux. So hopefully that helps you guys out. That's the video. Let me know you guys' thoughts on this topic. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of comments, and I know I've done some things wrong, but as I said from the start, I am far, far from the end-all, be-all on Wargame. I might have some other people that we could bring in and we could talk about this. That would be a very long-format video, but if you guys would be interested in that, let me know in the comments, because I would definitely put that together. But for now, that's going to be my take on this. Let me know your takes in the comments. If this helped, hit that old thumbs up, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.